Hey, get inspired, everybody, and welcome to our 100th episode of Life Inspired. And it's so exciting because this is our very first prime time episode, and we have lots of shout outs to give. I want to really thank TJ21 Media Group for making this whole thing happen. You guys are awesome. I want to thank Daryl Buchanan, who lets us use his song We Have Jesus for our exit music. Thank you, Daryl. If you guys want to download that song, you can get it on iTunes or darylbuchanan.net. And just want to introduce my very, very dear friend, Bob Laurent. Thank you, Dr. Bob, for coming on Life Inspired, number 100.
And you know I don't believe in coincidences.
No.
I don't think it couldn't be a coincidence that your 100th recording is on the day I turned 100 years old.
You're so funny.
This is wonderful.
He's not 100, okay?
I'm close.
Why do you keep saying that? You say that up in front of GCC all the time. You're like, I'm so old. You got to stop saying that. You're going to start being old.
Okay.
So you're so young. All right, so if you are tuning in for the first time and you've never watched Life Inspired before, we're going to ask Dr. Bob 3 questions. Basically, we want to talk about how and why we follow Jesus, but it's kind of like there's a turning point, and a lot of people have one major turning point in their lives, and a lot of people have several turning points in their lives, but it's something you were walking along and some ... and then God stepped in and did something moment, turned you to a new direction, and now you're walking inspired. So, first question. What's the before the ... the life was going along story that first you want to talk about?
The more I think about this, and I thought a lot about it preparing my heart to come and talk to you, the more I think about it, just an amazing impact that my father had on my life in a negative way. And from early on, I think a child's instinct is to want to be like their father. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1, in everything you do, imitate God's example, just as a much-loved child imitates his father. So I always kind of hero worshipped my dad. He was tall and handsome and strong. And it was so difficult for me to come to understand that he really didn't like me very much. Part of that was the way people used to parent back in the 50s.
Right.
You know, there weren't many metro men who were in touch with their feminine side. And so they would slap you around and give you their knuckles or spank you, a lot of corporal punishment. But even each time he would discipline me and hurt my feelings, I still loved him because it's an instinct for a child to love their dad.
Sure.
And he just kept treating me badly. And I loved him, but more than loving him, I grew to fear him. This is not a good thing for a child, to fear the one person who has the most influence on them. So I didn't really know what to do, but I continued trying to make him like me a little bit more. Like if I'd get 3 base hits in a Little League baseball game, then I felt like he liked me. If I got A's in school, I just wanted him to like me, to be impressed by me. One day in 1962, I think, so I would have been about 15 years old, I decided I was going to sing a song at church. I think it was a Father's Day. And I sang the song My Dad by Paul Peterson back then when he was on the Donna Reed Show. That was one of his songs in 1962 that was famous all over the country. And so these are the words I sang to our church with my father listening. My dad, oh, I love him so. And I only hope that someday my own son will say, my dad, now here is a man. And after I sang that, I had tears in my eyes and I looked down at him and he was like this.
Like, how dare you cry in public or something?
Yeah. I mean, from the time I was a little kid and I loved to sing, he would say to the company, he would say, Bobby's going to sing now. But I was so embarrassed, I would go in the bathroom of our little Cracker Box house and I would sing all the way from the bathroom down the hallway into the living room where they would hear me because I was just embarrassed to do that in front of him because I knew I would cry in front of him. But I had this natural love for God, or this natural love for my dad, and I always had a supernatural love for God. Even in high school, in my senior year of high school, when the different vocations came to represent their fields at our school, and they set up tables, and everybody would go to talk to the doctor and the lawyer. Nobody talked to the minister. So there I was, and I would be the one that would go talk to the minister, not dreaming I would ever be a pastor at a church.
Right.
But so God had his hand on me, but what was holding me back was every time somebody talked to me about God wanting to be my father, I just couldn't take that step. It was a subconscious problem I had, that if my own dad felt badly about me, why would I trust any other dad, any other father?
So is there a turning point that comes that turns you to...
It happened when I was 20 years old, and I thankfully married the right person. You can marry the wrong people. I just needed to be loved, and I ran into this girl in college who loved me, and who wasn't going to love her? She was a knockout, and smart, and musical, played piano, and I played guitar, and we kind of did the Dan, Lisa Vukmirovich thing, where we would always be together, performing together. And she was such a Christian that I decided I wanted to be like her, but I was sort of play acting at it. I believed in God. I loved the idea of God. I had not trusted him yet because I could not trust another dad.
Okay.
So here she and I are on the road doing our music at church camps all over Ohio. And
so you're singing church music to church people
because
and
I
didn't have
transferred to a Christian college,
but didn't have a personal relationship
got
with
on
God.
what they called a reach out team or a gospel team. If you'd asked me, I would have told you I believed in God. It was more of a in retrospect, I look back and see why I wasn't growing as a Christian. There's one thing to believe in God, and I think I always believed in God. There's something else when you believe into God. I had not believed into him. In John 3:16, when it says, believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, right?
Right.
That if you believe, whosoever believes, right, he gives everlasting life.
Right.
That preposition there is into. It's really not in.
Okay.
Most of the world believes in God, but not many people...
The demons believe.
Yeah, that James. Not many people believe into God. I had not believed into him, but I believed in God. And then I got caught in a lie at one of those church camps. My wife caught me in a lie. Had to do with vanity. I never felt like I looked good enough, and so I had a complexion problem, and I went and secretly bought a sun lamp. And my wife...
Was she your girlfriend at the time, or just a girl on the team with you?
She was my brand new wife. We got married.
You had already got married.
Married in college.
Oh, okay.
And we went out in the summertime to make a little bit of money and share the gospel in the summer. And she asked me if I'd bought a sun lamp. I was too embarrassed to admit that I was vain enough to try to treat my face with a sun lamp. I'm a man. What man would do that? And I said, no, I didn't do that. Why? And she reaches under my T-shirts in my suitcase and pulls it out and says, well, then what is this? And then I knew that she knew about me what my dad knew about me, that I was a phony. That I was a phony and that I was a liar. And so there I was in my swimsuit, church camp, and I run off out of the cabin where she was, and I ran down to the woods there in Cincinnati, Ohio, at camp, can't remember the name of it anymore, and ran into the woods and tearing my chest on thorn bushes until I came to a creek. And I sat down in that creek bed and I started putting the water up over my chest to get rid of these scratches, and felt like crying, knew that I was a liar, knew I couldn't go back and talk to her. I knew she was going to divorce me. Who would want to be married to a liar? And as I sat there in that creek bed, I heard 3 words that I am telling you I never heard one time as a child. Maybe when they were rocking me and giving me a bottle when I was a baby, they told me they loved me. But I never heard the words, I love you, ever from my father, not one time. And I distinctly heard the words, I love you.
In the creek bed. In
the creek bed, in the woods. And I've never heard God talk to me since that way. I mean, I know his spirit speaks to my heart and prods me.
But you heard an audible voice.
I heard a voice in the woods. And my first instinct was I looked around to see who said it. Now the book that I wrote, now you understand that scene in the book, because I know you read the story, where the boy heard the words, I love you.
Yeah, tell him the title of your book again.
I can't remember.
Thin Spaces.
Thin Places.
Thin Places. Great book.
That there are places in your life where it's you're so close to God, there's nothing between you and God. That's a thin place.
It's a fictional story that's amazing. You should totally read it.
So in the story, that boy hears the words, "I love you," and he gives his life to Christ. That's what I did that day.
Wow.
I knew it was God because no one else said it. And when I knew he loved me, then I could forgive my dad for being such a beehole, right? The way he treated me was terrible. If parents did physically to children today what my dad did to me, they'd go to prison if they beat him like he beat me. And then I could forgive him. Mm-hmm. And I was okay. Literally, for the rest of my life, I could go take care of him. I could drive him to the doctors. I could do his meds for him. I could take all of his junk. I could take it for the rest of my life because of that turning point. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Wow. All right, now you said you had like 3 different times in your life that had to do with fathers and sons. Was there another one you wanted to share?
The second one, just briefly, was when my own son died. When
Was
our
he your
son,
first?
when our son, it was our second son.
Okay.
And Joshua died, and I was so shaken by it that I got angry with God, and I decided I wasn't going to go to church for a while. And that's tough when you're the pastor. No, I'm just, I wasn't the pastor then, but I decided I wouldn't go to church, and God would have to win me back, because I was angry with him, because I prayed so hard, and I believed that Joshua was going to live. I believed it.
How old was he when he passed?
A baby.
Like, but 5 weeks or something really short.
He didn't live long, but I believed my prayers would bring healing to that baby. And when God let that baby die, I thought, what is your problem? I'm out here traveling for you. You know, I'm away from my family for weeks at a time doing evangelism with this band. Why am I doing this?
Right.
If you can't save a little baby. So I was so angry with God, and I came back to the house, and I'm in the basement, and I'm in a dark mood, and my little boy walks up to me, my only son, because my other son's dead. So my only begotten comes up to me and says, "Do you want me to pray for you, Dad?" He was just about this tall, little shaka blonde hair. "Do you want me to pray for you, Dad?" And so I said, "Sure, pray for me." And Christopher goes, "God, let Joshua play with your best toys." And when my little boy, who at that time was maybe 5, when he said that, I realized that Joshua was in a better place than my son Chris was. Because Joshua is now being raised by a real father, and I'm sometimes blind and deaf, right? And my little boy showed me where my son was. My little boy showed me where my son was. He's playing with God's toys. He's okay. God doesn't make mistakes. So I thought that was cool.
Very cool. So that was your turning point. What's the third one?
Well, so my son was my best friend, and my surviving son was my best friend. And I went to him for help and love, and we were best friends forever. I was the best man at his wedding.
Oh,
and we just know you didn't have to work at being friends with each other, because it's just what we were, until a couple of years ago. And a couple of years ago, he went one way politically, and I went the other way politically. And he couldn't understand why I voted the way I voted, and I could not understand why he did. And we started having trouble with each other for the first time. And I went to my wife and I said, "Joyce, something's got to give here." And he came to our house one day, several months ago now. Well, really only a few months ago. And we were still having this unspoken distance between us. And he saw something at our house that made him think that we were even more politically. I'd already been preaching at the church for a year. Don't be political with your children. Don't have political discussions with your children. You know, don't be a crazy Republican or a loony leftist. Be in the middle. You'd heard me preach this at church for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. Stay in the middle. Christ is often in the tension between the two crazy extremes. You know, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, but give God your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And that's the way I decided to be, but it wasn't working between me and my boy. And so when he made that remark, I said, that's it. I got to know, how could you vote in such a way and not care about these people that your vote is impacting? And he said to me, well, I could say the same thing to you about these people. And so we go at it. I'm a man of deep feeling, and he's a man of deep passion. And we go at each other in my front driveway, these two best buddies, for a good 45 minutes, until finally I said, that's it, no more. Christopher, look at me. I want you to know that I choose you. I looked right into his eyes and I said, I choose you. I'm going to give up cable TV. I'm not going to be political. I want you to know I choose you. And he looked at me with tears in his eyes, and he's at the time 45-ish, and he said, Dad, I choose you. And this is such a good idea, Dad, because these different cable networks, they just want us to hate each other. And that's what they do to everybody. When I preach that story in church, people all over the church start applauding, spontaneously applauding, because their families are going through this stupidity.
Right.
That's the devil trying to separate families.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
each person who chooses their political end of the spectrum, they do it with good intentions.
Of course.
And we can't write them off. They have good intentions, and we need to love them, right? And so when my son said that, then he said to me with those same tears, he said, Dad, go with me to Bhutan. I said, what's a Bhutan? He said, it's a little Buddhist kingdom over in the Himalayas. And Dad, I'm helping persecuted Christians all over the world, and many Christians are being persecuted in Bhutan. I said, Christopher, you know I can't go across the ocean because I've got these blood clots. And I told your mother I would never do that. And he said, Dad, I'll pray for you. What do you do when your kid says, I'll pray for you? And so I said, okay, I'll go. I'll go. And
you went in July this summer.
We went this summer, and even though I was limping all over the place, God did something between me and my boy. And I am telling you, Leslie, from that moment on, not only were he and I restored to each other, but his life. God started answering prayers in his life about him, about his son, who has been kind of falling away. And about the blueprint God has for his life. So many things are happening in his life now that were getting blocked up because of his relationship with me. And now we are spiritually so freed up that I can't wait to see what happens in the next couple of years.
And things are good with your grandson now.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm like, got tears in my eyes that are about to fall out.
I think that if he and I hadn't had that reconciliation, if we hadn't told Satan to go to hell, and if we hadn't decided together to live in the middle, in the tension between the two polar crazy extremes, if we hadn't made that decision. By the way, he said from that day on, he said, my heart got so light. And he said, now I've got half of the people in America who can be my friend again. Instead of them being my enemy, they're my potential friends again. He said, my heart got so lightened up by that. Isn't that awesome?
Awesome. Very
May
cool.
we all do that.
Amen.
Come to the middle where Christ is.
Amen. All right. All right. So, TJ, you're going to have to, this has got to be replayed on Father's Day. Because this is a great story of fathers and their relationships. And wow. Thank you for sharing, Dr. Bob.
Thank you.
So, as always, you can watch In Life Inspired on YouTube, on Facebook, on inspiredhomes.com channel, just our website. And so if you know somebody that needs to hear Dr. Bob's story, please share it. And if you want to meet with Dr. Bob and have a coffee with him, I'm sure he would meet with you if you had questions about how to know God personally or whatever. Oh, I almost forgot. We usually ask, how do you stay inspired? How do you, like you said, you haven't heard an audible voice except for that one time, but you hear him all the time. So how do you hear him? How do you stay connected? Just real briefly, because everybody's probably ready to go.
Fresh oil every day. I get
What
fresh
does that
oil
mean,
every
fresh
day.
oil?
The Holy Spirit. Jesus said, "If you come to me," in the Greek, it's if you keep coming to me. So I keep coming every day. He said in John 7, if you keep coming to me and keep believing in me and keep thirsting for me, you won't get any fresh oil. You won't get any new water from the Holy Spirit if you're not thirsty. You just won't. So if you think you've reached a point where you're not thirsty anymore, I stay broken. I stay vulnerable. I stay thirsty. And so I get fresh spiritual power every day from God. And of course, in the Bible every day. So
So you read.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yep, there you go. Awesome. All right. Thank you guys so much again for watching every week. We're going to be next week also at 7:30 p.m. because we're at prime time now. So again, if you know somebody needs to see it, share it. And if you know somebody that needs to tell their story about their turning point, we'd love to hear that too. So message us. Have a great day, you guys. Bye-bye.
Yes, yes, we have. We have Jesus. From a spirit in heaven. We have Jesus. We want to shelter you with God tonight. Take away the darkness, give you all the skylight.